I sat at the long dining table, the silverware too shiny, the plates too white, and the air thick with fake smiles and quiet judgment. Clara's family filled the room, her father at the head like a king, her mother poised and pearl-clad, her cousins laughing too loud at things that weren't funny. I kept my back straight, napkin on my lap, just like Clara told me. Be polite, baby. This dinner matters. I'd heard that more times than I could count. So I nodded and smiled, said thank you when the waiter poured my wine, and laughed when I was supposed to, even when it wasn't real. Across from me, Julian, Clara's brother, kept looking at me with that crooked smile he always wore when he was ready to pick a fight. He twirled his wineglass like he was in some movie, leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. I knew it was coming. It always came. Every gathering, every holiday, every forced family meal. And still, I sat there trying to keep the peace because Clara asked me to. So, Miles, Julian started, loud enough to quiet the room a bit. How's the computer stuff going? Still fixing passwords for old ladies? I smiled, tight and forced. I'm working on a few freelance projects right now. Freelance, he repeated like it was a joke. That's rich people language for unemployed, isn't it? Some of the cousins chuckled. Beatrix, Clara's mother, smiled behind her wineglass. Not enough to stop it, just enough to show she didn't mind. I glanced at Clara. She didn't look at me. Her fingers traced the rim of her glass. No defense, not even a glance. I swallowed hard. Julian kept going. You know, I always told Clara she could do better, but hey, at least you're loyal, right? He grinned, teeth sharp. I mean, what else do you bring to the table? My jaw tightened. I told myself, let it go. For her, for peace, for the illusion that we were a normal couple. But my fingers clenched under the table. My ears rang. I felt my heart thudding in my throat. Say that again, I said, barely above a whisper. Julian raised his brows. I said, and then I slapped him. Hard. My hand cracked across his face like a shot. His wineglass tilted, crashed onto the table. He stumbled back, chair screeching against the floor, palm to his cheek. The room froze. No one spoke. No one moved. I looked at Clara. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't angry. She was blank, embarrassed, her mouth a straight line. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't say a word to Julian either. She just picked up her napkin and folded it neatly beside her plate. I thought she'd stand by me. She didn't. The car ride home was quiet enough to hear every blink of the turn signal. Clara kept her eyes on the road, hands tight on the steering wheel. I waited for her to say something, anything. A question, a sigh, even my name. But nothing came. Just the sound of tires rolling over wet pavement and the distant hum of the city outside the windows. I looked at her. Her profile was sharp, jaw locked, lips pressed together like a zipper she wouldn't unzip. I opened my mouth twice, closed it both times. I wanted to ask if she was okay, if we were okay. I wanted her to ask if I was okay, but she didn't. You embarrassed me, she said finally. Just that, no emotion in it, like I'd knocked over a glass of water at a restaurant, like I'd stepped out of line at a performance. I embarrassed you? I asked, keeping my voice steady. She didn't answer, just kept driving. I leaned back in my seat, head against the window, watching the buildings blur by. My cheek still burned from the heat of it all. Not from the slap, I didn't regret that, but from her silence. The kind that didn't just hurt, it rearranged things inside you. My mind wandered uninvited to a memory. A warm afternoon 3 years ago. We were in the kitchen, barefoot, dancing to some old jazz record Clara's dad gave her. She laughed when I spun her, cheeks pink, hair messy. Back then she used to reach for my hand first. She used to look at me like I was the only thing in the room that made sense. I would have given anything to hold on to that version of her a little longer. Now she could barely look at me. We got home. She walked ahead, opened the door without waiting, went straight to the bedroom and closed it behind her. No goodnight, no conversation, just a soft click of wood and brass, like a wall being built, one silent brick at a time. I sat on the couch, still wearing my shoes, staring at the floor. My hands hung between my knees. The room was too clean, too quiet. I thought about speaking through the door, trying to explain, to apologize maybe, but for what? For not letting her brother humiliate me? For standing up when no one else would? I kicked off my shoes and lay back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The fan above spun slowly, each blade a reminder of how things used to turn, how things used to move between us. That night, I didn't dream. Or if I did, I didn't remember. By morning, something had shifted. Not just in her, in me too. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was starting to see it. This wasn't a crack in something perfect. This was a crack that had always been there. I just hadn't noticed how deep it ran. Clara's phone lit up as she stood by the counter, fingers moving fast, eyes locked on the screen. I watched her from the couch, coffee growing cold in my hands. She hadn't said good morning, not in words, not in touch, not even in a glance. Just silence and tapping, thumbs dancing like they had a purpose that didn't include me. A name I didn't recognize flashed across her screen. Eli, just that. No last name, no emoji, just a message preview that read, "Last night was," before it disappeared behind her quick swipe. Her hand moved fast, screen face down on the counter, like nothing had happened. I looked at her, waiting. She didn't look back. I didn't ask. Something in me said not to. Not yet. Instead, I said, "You working today?" She nodded, poured water into her glass, still not meeting my eyes. Late shift, another one. Another late shift. Another night I'd eat alone, brush my teeth alone, sleepy beside a cold pillow where her body should have been. My chest felt tight, not the angry kind, the hollow kind, like something was falling through me quietly, without a sound. I watched her walk into the bedroom, phone in hand, door half shut behind her. She used to leave it wide open, music playing, asking me which shoes to wear. Now she moved like a shadow, always slightly out of reach. I started noticing more. Her perfume changed, stronger, sweeter. Not the kind she used to wear, not the one I bought her last Christmas. New earrings, new purse, all things she didn't tell me about. I asked once casual, "New bag?" She just shrugged and said, "Got it on sale." End of conversation. The lies weren't loud, they were soft, hidden in what she didn't say. Dinners stopped, so did kisses on the forehead. Even her questions about my day disappeared. She'd come home late, say she was exhausted, and go straight to bed with her phone clutched in her hand like it needed her more than I did. Once I woke up at 2 a.m. to find her in the living room. Lights off, phone screen glowing. She didn't see me standing in the hallway. I watched her typing fast, then laughing softly. Her real laugh, the one I hadn't heard in weeks. I didn't say anything, just walked back to the bedroom and lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering what it was like to be the man on the other end of that message. She started turning away in her sleep, started locking her phone, started forgetting my birthday plans, the movie night we'd talked about, the life we'd built together, piece by piece. I wasn't angry, not yet, but something inside me was waking up. That silent part of a man that knows, the part that feels it in the space between touches, in the shift of tone, in the way her smile stopped reaching her eyes when it was meant for me. Something wasn't right. I felt it, and it wasn't going away. The charger in her drawer didn't match her phone. I found it while looking for tape. Sleek, new, not hers. I turned it over in my hand, quiet, thinking. A few days later, I checked again. The charger was gone, replaced with a hair straightener she never used. Her drawer became a rotating mystery of things I couldn't ask about. She came home one night with a necklace, gold, small pendant, elegant, expensive. I'd never seen it before. I asked where it came from. She smiled faintly, said, "My boss gave me a bonus." No bonus showed up in our bank account. I didn't ask again. Not that night. The scent hit me first. Strong cologne, not mine. Woodsy, rich, the kind worn by men who golf and wear watches heavier than their conscience. It clung to her coat when she tossed it on the couch. I leaned in when she wasn't looking, inhaled once, slow. Not mine, not perfume either, something unmistakably male. She said nothing, started heating leftovers without a word. Another night, a new body wash. She came out of the shower smelling like grapefruit and mint, not the lavender one she always used. I asked if she bought something new. She said she was trying samples from the gym. I didn't remember her ever going to the gym. I waited. I watched. She became too careful, too clean, every trace covered like a well-rehearsed lie. So I followed her. One Thursday, she left around 7, said she was heading to the pharmacy and then to work. I waited 10 minutes, grabbed my keys, and followed at a distance. She didn't go to the pharmacy. She drove past it, past her office, across the city. I kept behind 2 cars back, hands steady on the wheel, heart doing the opposite. She parked near a quiet corner, dim lights, no cameras. A car waited, sleek, black, windows tinted. She got in, passenger side, no hesitation. Just climbed in like she'd done it a dozen times before. The car didn't move for 15 minutes. I sat down the street, engine off, lights dim, watched the shadow of her outline lean closer. I didn't get out, didn't knock on the window, didn't take a picture. I just sat there. My hands stayed on my lap. My chest felt like it was holding its breath. And I remembered Julian's laugh, the slap, the cold look on her face after, the way she folded her napkin and turned away. Maybe she hadn't been mad at me for hitting her brother. Maybe she'd been mad that I brought too much attention, that my explosion cracked the mask she'd been wearing too tightly. She got out of the car eventually, smoothed her skirt, fixed her hair, walked back to her car like nothing happened. I drove home ahead of her, lights off, no sound, waiting, not to fight, to decide. You sleeping with him? The words came out flat, not loud, not angry, just final. Like I already knew the answer, and I was only asking because I needed her to say it out loud. She froze by the sink, back to me, one hand gripping a glass she hadn't finished filling. Water kept running. She turned it off slowly, set the glass down, then turned around. Her face didn't twist, didn't flinch. Her arms crossed like she was bracing for wind, not shame. Eyes calm, voice steady. It wasn't planned, she said. It just happened. No apology, no denial, not even guilt. Just a soft excuse laid out like a napkin on a dinner table. How long, I asked. She shrugged. A few months. A few months, like it was nothing, like we weren't sleeping in the same bed while she was texting someone else from the bathroom, smiling into a screen that wasn't mine. My throat felt dry, but I didn't move. My hands were in my pockets. I wasn't going to give her a show. You've been so distant, she added. It's not just me. You stopped being present a long time ago. I stared at her. So, it's my fault. I'm not saying that, she paused. I'm saying things weren't working. You've been different. And instead of telling me you just found someone new, she looked down, then back up. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You meant for it to happen some other way? She didn't answer. She just stood there, jaw set, like she was the one being attacked. Like I'd made her cheat, like I owed her an explanation. The laugh came without warning, sharp, dry, almost bitter. I shook my head, lips curled up without warmth. She blinked, caught off guard. You think this is about me being distant? I said, voice tight. You think after everything I took from you, from your family, from Julian, I was the one who drifted? She looked away. I stood there in that dining room while he mocked me, humiliated me. You didn't say a word. And you want to tell me I was the one who checked out? You hit my brother, she said, and he poured coffee on my face. Her silence told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't love anymore, was it? I asked. It was something else. You didn't want a partner. You wanted someone quiet, someone you could shape. You control. She opened her mouth, closed it, no words. I stepped back. One step, then another. The space between us felt wider than the whole room. I'm done, I said, and for the first time I meant it. The zipper on the duffel bag dragged loud across the room, louder than her voice had been in days. A few shirts, a pair of jeans, the charger from the nightstand. Nothing else. No framed pictures, no books from the shelf, no memories that didn't belong to him alone. The watch he got from his dad went into the side pocket. Wallet, keys, that was enough. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, silent. No pleading, no apology, just watching like someone observing a storm that had already passed. Her eyes followed him, but her body didn't move. Not to stop him, not to help, not even to say goodbye. The door closed behind him with a soft thud. No slam, no drama. Outside, the cold hit different, not sharp, not cruel, just clear. A cheap motel blinked 2 blocks away, a red sign flickering like it couldn't decide if it wanted to be open. He checked in with cash, didn't give a name. Room 204, 1 bed, scratchy blanket, a nightstand with a lamp that leaned to the left. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and old smoke. He sat on the edge of the bed, bag at his feet, hands resting on his knees. A photo flickered through his mind. Clara, years ago, barefoot in his old apartment, eating noodles out of a pot, laughing at something dumb he'd said. Her hair messy, eyes soft, lips curved in a way that used to feel like home. Back then she liked his small life, said it felt real, said he made her feel safe. Then came the dinner parties, her father's firm handshakes, her mother's questions about background, her brother's long stares. He bought a nicer jacket, learned to smile on cue, cut back on jokes, talked less about his parents and more about their future, about blending in. He called it growing up. It took years to see it for what it was. I wasn't a husband, I was a project. He said it out loud, like naming it would make it smaller. The creaked as he leaned back, arms folded behind his head, eyes on the cracked ceiling. The silence pressed down, but it didn't hurt. It felt unfamiliar, like breaking in new shoes. Not comfortable, but honest. No text came, no call. She wasn't going to chase him. Not now, maybe not ever. He turned off the lamp and let the dark fill the room. It was the first night in years that belonged only to him. The apartment smelled like dust and wood polish. Small kitchen, cracked tiles, no dining table, just a counter, 2 stools, and a narrow window that barely let the light in. The landlord said it had charm, it had silence, and that was enough. Groceries sat in a brown paper bag, eggs, bread, coffee. The simple kind of food he hadn't bought in years. A pan sizzled on the stove, oil popping as he cracked eggs one by one. No one to ask if he wanted oat milk or almond. No one to judge if he ate over the sink. No one to roll their eyes when he used too much salt. The first bite burned his tongue. He smiled anyway. Old boxes sat near the wall. A guitar case he hadn't opened in months. A sketch pad from college. Dust on both. He wiped them down slowly, like waking up a part of himself he'd buried under dinner reservations and weekend brunches. His fingers moved across strings stiffly, calluses gone. The chords came back one by one. Not perfect, just enough. Friends reached out. Some were surprised, some weren't. A few asked, "What happened?" He told them straight. No drama, no begging for pity, just the truth. "She cheated," he said. "What did you do?" "I left." A few paused, uncomfortable. One said, "Are you sure it wasn't just a rough patch?" He didn't answer that one. Others took her side quietly. Mutual friends vanished from group chats. One unfollowed him, another stopped replying to texts. The silence after truth is louder than lies. But a few stayed. Nate came by with beer and takeout, sat on the floor with him, back against the couch. "You look lighter," he said. "Like you're finally breathing." He nodded, took a long sip, looked around at the bare walls, the second-hand lamp, the mattress on the floor. "It's nothing like the old place," Nate added. "It's better," he replied. They laughed, not because it was funny, because it was finally okay to say it. Nights stretched quietly. He read again, cooked, played old songs, took walks without checking his phone. There was no one to impress, no one to perform for, just peace, thin and steady. A friend from work called and said, "You really walked away?" "Yeah." "And you're not going back?" "No." "Man," the friend said, "I don't think I could do that." He smiled at the wall. "I didn't think I could either." He lay in bed later, arms folded behind his head, listening to a dog bark somewhere down the block. The window creaked, the fan ticked. The quiet felt earned, better than being in a room full of people who make you feel invisible, better than apologizing for taking up space. This stillness, this mess, this freedom was his. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and rain-soaked pavement. She was already sitting near the window, stirring an untouched cup, her eyes flicking toward the door every few seconds. The moment he stepped in, her spine straightened. She didn't wave, just nodded like two colleagues about to discuss something clinical. He pulled the chair out slowly. Saturday folded his hands on the table. She looked older somehow, tired, thinner, makeup done too carefully. The silence stretched between them before she broke it. "I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't." Her fingers tapped the side of the cup. "I thought we should talk, just once, before it's all over." He nodded. No need to rush her, let her say what she needed. She looked out the window. "You didn't have to leave like that." You didn't have to cheat. A pause, her jaw tensed, her mouth opened, then closed. It wasn't about him, she said. It was about us. You were pulling away for months. You stopped trying. I felt alone. You felt alone, he repeated slowly. I'm not excusing it, she added quickly. But you have to admit things weren't working. They weren't, and you didn't fix them. You escaped them. She leaned forward. You hit my brother in front of everyone. And he poured hot coffee on me. You watched, then you walked away. You should have controlled yourself, she snapped. He tilted his head. I did. For years, her eyes dropped. The coffee sat untouched between them, steam long gone. I loved you, she said softly. I still do. In a way. In what way? His voice didn't rise. In the way that let you pretend I was part of your world as long as I stayed quiet. In the way that looked away every time your family cut me down. I didn't know what to do, she said, a tremor in her voice. You did nothing. That was the problem. She sighed. This doesn't have to end ugly. We could have... He cut in, gentle but clear. You're not sorry. Her lips parted. I didn't say that. You're not sorry, he said again. You're scared. She blinked. You're scared I finally saw you for who you are, and now I won't unsee it. Her hand froze mid-stir. The spoon dropped against the cup with a faint clink. She didn't argue, didn't deny it. He stood, pushed the chair back slowly. I hope you find what you're looking for. She didn't speak, just sat there, eyes on the window, watching the street like it might offer answers he no longer needed. He walked out without looking back. The train rocked gently as fields blurred past the window. Rows of sunflowers stretched into the horizon, yellow heads tilted toward the sky. The seat beside him was empty. No chatter, no expectations, just the hum of motion and the soft sound of pages flipping. The journal lay open on his lap, pen resting between two fingers. The first few entries were messy, uncertain. Now the ink moved steady, sentence after sentence, flowing without apology. Woke up without checking my phone. Ate breakfast in silence. Didn't miss a thing. The notebook had become routine, a place to tell the truth without editing. No audience, no judgment, just thoughts poured out like water. The town came into view slowly. Cobbled streets, pastel buildings, balconies lined with plants. He stepped off the train with no plan, bag slung over one shoulder, camera hanging from his neck. The air smelled like baked bread and spring dust. A woman at a flower stall smiled as he passed. He nodded back. Bought a single daisy for no reason. Carried it through the narrow streets until it wilted in his hand. It felt good, pointless and beautiful. He wandered without a map, found a cafe with wooden chairs and a chipped counter, ordered a coffee, sat near the window, watched the world without needing to be in it. Two boys kicked a ball down the alley. A couple argued softly over a menu. A dog barked at a pigeon. Everything moved without him, and still he felt part of it. A man in a cap sat across from him after asking in broken English. They talked about the weather, then about fishing, then about nothing at all. The man clapped him on the back when he left behind a smile and half a cookie. He ate it. The journal came out again that night, back in the rented room above a bookstore. He wrote by the window, legs stretched out, the moon hanging low. She never said sorry, and I think that's okay now. He paused, let the sentence sit. I spent years waiting for someone to make me feel enough. Maybe I needed to stop asking and start telling myself I was. The pen tapped once against the page. I don't need her apology, I needed mine. He signed his name at the bottom, folded the page once, then again, tucked it in the back pocket of the journal. Outside, laughter drifted up from the street below. Glasses clinked. Music played from a window across the road. He leaned out, let the breeze brush his face, closed his eyes. Peace didn't arrive like a storm. It came slow, like light creeping through curtains in the early morning, and for the first time in a long time, he let it in. The sun broke through the curtains in soft stripes, casting light across the wooden floor. The loft above the cafe smelled like bread and espresso, the kind of scent that made mornings feel like beginnings instead of reminders. A kettle whistled on the stove. He turned it off, poured the hot water over fresh grounds, and let the smell fill the room. The Polaroid camera sat on the shelf beside a stack of journals, its strap worn smooth. Downstairs, chairs scraped across the cafe floor. Theo's voice rose in his usual morning rant about late deliveries. He smiled, sipped his coffee, leaned against the open window. Music drifted from a speaker on the sidewalk, someone tuning a guitar, the clink of plates, the hum of life. All of it familiar now, all of it his. The extra room in the loft was full, not with furniture but with memories. Photos pinned to the wall, blurry markets, wide rivers, crooked smiles. Lucy's drawing still hung beside a note she wrote. Miles is cool. He knows code and buys snacks. It made him laugh every time. Afternoons were for work, fixing old phones, teaching Lucy how to center text on a web page, answering client emails without dread, no meetings, no suits, just honest labor and quiet pride. Evenings, sometimes a walk along the canal, camera in hand, clicking moments that didn't need perfect framing. He'd started printing his favorites. The wall grew with them. No captions, no filters, just moments. Clara's voice hadn't echoed in months. Her last message sat unread. The divorce had come and gone, papers signed, names untangled, no court battles, just a clean ending. A man at the cafe asked where he was from. New York, he answered. The man asked why he left. He paused, then said, to find out what I looked like without anyone else's mirror. The man smiled, handed him a croissant, and called him friend. That night he sat on the rooftop, city lights blinking like stars that refused to be